Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good evening and namaste, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday evening reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're still in the introduction, and it's, of course, a very interesting introduction written by Swami Nikhilananda that gives us an overview of the life and spiritual journey and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. So with that, I'll turn it over to our beloved reader, Haima Naidu, and she will tell us where we are and begin reading where she feels is auspicious.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Good evening, everyone. Namaste. And we are on page 30 on PDF. I don't know about the book. The PDF is page 30. We are at Vaishnava disciplines. That's where I'll be starting. We read it last week.
We're in this discussion of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual journey, his sadhana. So now we've talked about his, we've read and heard about and talked about his study and mastery of Tantra. Now we're going to hear about and talk about the Vaishnava disciplines, those traditional disciplines associated with the worship of Vishnu. So Vishnu Vaishnava. Okay, Haima, thank you.
Sure, Brother Shankara, thank you. Vaishnava disciplines. After completing the Tantric sadhana, Sri Ramakrishna followed the Brahmani in the disciplines of Vaishnavism. The Vaishnavas are worshippers of Vishnu, the all-pervading, the supreme God, who is also known as Hari and Narayana. Of Vishnu's various incarnations, the two with the largest number of followers are Rama and Krishna. Vaishnavism is exclusively a religion of bhakti. Bhakti is intense love of God, attachment to Him alone. It is of the nature of bliss and bestows upon the lover immortality and liberation. God, according to Vaishnavism, cannot be realized through logic or reason, and without bhakti, all penances, austerities, and rites are futile. Man cannot realize God by self-exertion alone. For the vision of God, His grace is absolutely necessary, and this grace is felt by the pure of heart.
Okay, please read those last few lines again. I have something I'd like to say, but I'd like you to read this definition of Vaishnavism again.
Definitely, I will. Vaishnavas are worshippers of Vishnu, the all-pervading, the supreme God, who is also known as Hari and Narayana. of Vishnu's various incarnations, the two with the largest number of followers are Rama and Krishna. Vaishnavism is exclusively a religion of bhakti. Bhakti is intense love of God, attachment to Him alone. It is of the nature of bliss and bestows upon the lover immortality and liberation. God, according to Vaishnavism, cannot be realized through logic or reason, and without bhakti, all penances, austerities, and rites are futile.
Now, this is where I'd like to pause for a moment.
Mhm. Please do, Brother Shankara.
This is the kind of exclusivism that we see in certain religious traditions. We see it in some aspects of Christianity. We certainly see it in Islam and the Orthodox Islam, and we see it in Vaishnavism. There's this way and this way alone, and all else is futile. Now, of course, that's not what Sri Krishna teaches, who's one of the principal incarnations worshipped by the Vaishnavas. But that, and it certainly is not what Sri Krishna teaches in the Gita. That he says that bhakti is superior in chapter 12, the yoga of devotion. He talks about the fact, in answer to Arjuna's question, that bhakti is the most auspicious path and the quickest path, in the sense that the other paths require, well, I won't go into all those details, but nevertheless, this business of Vaishnavism being exclusive, we see that Sri Ramakrishna breaks this mold. He breaks this mold. How much Nikhilananda says about that in the introduction, I don't recall. But certainly as we get into the teachings within the book itself, Sri Ramakrishna's conversations with many, many different people, we see that he certainly does not adhere to this exclusivism that is part of the Vaishnava path as we've just heard it described. So any comments or concerns or questions from anyone about what was just read or what was just said? All right, dears. Then please, Haima, read on.
Man cannot realize God by self-exertion alone. For the vision of God, His grace is absolutely necessary, and this grace is felt by the pure of heart. The mind is to be purified through bhakti. The pure mind then remains forever immersed in the ecstasy of God vision. It is the cultivation of this divine love that is the chief concern of the Vaishnava religion. I have one comment here, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please, dear.
In order to become a bhakta, we also need the penances, austerities, and rites in the beginning. We do need to do those rituals to get there. I think it's like dependent on bhakti, dependent on this, and this dependence on bhakti, pure, right, Brother Shankara?
Yes, that is the case. But the Vaishnavas, of course, prescribe certain ones.
Exactly.
They certainly do exclude the Shakti path and the Shiva path, the Shaivite path. They're actively, the Orthodox and traditional Vaishnava is actively hostile toward those other paths, saying that they're in error. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna in particular, practiced the worship of Shakti in the form of Ma Kali, Kali Ma.
Mhm.
And so, and he practiced rites and rituals and so on in the beginning, but soon set them aside because he gained their fruits. And so he didn't, you didn't see him practicing rites and rituals much, though he did morning and evening wave incense and chant the names in front of the pictures of various deities, gods and goddesses that were on pictures of whom were on his wall in his room. So all this is to be revealed to us as we go along. So you're absolutely right, Haima. There are even for any of these paths, there are rites and rituals in the beginning.
Thank you.
Even for jnana, even for
Yeah.
you go through
The rituals.
Shravana, Manana, and then Nididhyasana. And so it's a process. There's a workbook for it. And so,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay. There are
Anything else
three.
for us?
Thank
Hold
you.
on. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment from their own wisdom or experience? Or does this raise any concern or question for you? Okay, please go ahead.
There are three kinds of formal devotion: tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. If a person, while showing devotion to God, is actuated by malevolence, arrogance, jealousy, or anger, then his devotion is tamasic. Since it is influenced by tamas, the quality of inertia. If he worships God from a desire for fame or wealth, or from any other worldly ambition, then his devotion is rajasic, since it is influenced by rajas, the quality of activity. But if a person loves God without any thought of material gain, if he performs his duties to please God alone and maintains toward all created beings the attitude of friendship, then his devotion is called sattvic, since it is influenced by sattva, the quality of harmony. I can read this one more time. There are three kinds of formal devotion: tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. If a person, while showing devotion to God, is actuated by malevolence, arrogance, jealousy, or anger, then his devotion is tamasic, since it is influenced by tamas, the quality of inertia. If he worships God from a desire for fame or wealth, or from any other worldly ambition, then his devotion is rajasic, since it is influenced by rajas, the quality of activity. But if a person loves God without any thought of material gain, if he performs his duties to please God alone and maintains toward all created beings the attitude of friendship, then his devotion is called sattvic, since it is influenced by sattva, the quality of harmony. But the highest devotion transcends the three gunas or qualities, being a spontaneous, uninterrupted inclination of the mind toward God, the inner soul of all beings, and it wells up in the heart of a true devotee as soon as he hears the name of God or mention of God's attributes.
Okay, is there any comment or question or concern from anyone about anything that was just read.
Shankara,
Yes,
this is
dear.
Daniel.
Yes, Dan.
What do you think is meant by saying that if a person is actuated by malevolence?
Oh,
That
well,
use of actuated is a little odd to me.
well, there are people of demonic personalities. In the hymns to the Divine Mother in the Chandi, these are referred to as asuras and daityas. They may have devotion, only the most extreme hate righteousness altogether. But some are they're activated, a demonic personality. Again, this is described in the Gita, in I believe chapter 17, divine and demonic tendencies. There are people with those tendencies, and they may be they may have a certain kind of devotion to the divine, hoping to use the power of the divine to bring about what it is that they're angry to fulfill their anger and their resentment and their I encourage anyone here to read the Devi Mahatmyam. It's Devi Mahat, next word, I'm sorry, Devi, next word, Mahatmyam, Mahatmyam. It's otherwise known as the Chandi, and it tells the story of these demonic beings of demonic nature, called asuras and daityas, robbing the gods, those servants of Vishnu that are sustainers and protectors, robbing them of their prowess, as it is said in that. And so, yes, these people do exist. I think we see a great deal of that in the world today. There's a great deal of demonic activity in the world today. And some of those people have, in their perverse way, tamasic way, this devotion to God as a way to give them power.
But does it ever result in liberation or just
No,
worldly
no,
power?
no.
Yeah, that's why I was just wanting to be clear on there because I wasn't picturing
There's no hope of liberation for a mind so agitated. The tamasic and rajasic devotion bespeak a mind that is agitated in these two ways, agitated by tamas or agitated by rajas. There's no hope at all for for liberation for these people. As a matter of fact, Sri Krishna specifically says in chapter 17, divine and demonic tendencies, what becomes of these people? They get cast back into parents of low character time after time until they finally realize whatever it is they need to realize to stop being that kind of personality. The divine being within us is the same, unitary, no different from the person of demonic tendencies than the person of sattvic tendencies. It is the same divine being within the same Atman, but the coverings are very deep and dark for the tamasic, less deep and dark, but still very profound for the rajasic, and very penetrable and removable for that person of sattvic character. We can talk later about what the pitfall of being sattvic is, but suffice it to say for the time being that these three ways of being are recognized in all religions, and whether they're called by this name or not. But this is why within Christianity it's said, hate the sin, not the sinner. The sinner is the pure, eternal soul of the person who is behaving as a sinner. So within Christianity it is said, hate the sin, not the sinner. Or actually, the words I think in the scripture are abominate the sin, not the sinner, not hate. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Daniel and Glenn.
Brother Shankara, in Hindu scriptures, we have so many evil asuras, but in our world history, I think I would say Hitler and Mussolini probably are that category. Don't they go into that category?
Oh,
it is to fill up
of
their
course.
evil, their
They-
evil
they-
ego.
They are Maha-asuras, no doubt, but particularly Hitler and Stalin and
Stalin,
Mao Zedong.
Lenin, yes.
Well,
And
you know, it's questionable about Lenin, whether he was that profoundly evil or not. He may have been more philosopher, though twisted from our perspective. But Marx and Lenin, you know, they had some points to make about the way the world was being run at the time that they were writing what they wrote. And so Marx and Lenin and Trotsky and those, they were all a kind of philosopher.
we still have that type of people floating around in this world, even now, even in today's world.
Oh
think
yes,
it's
oh
the
yes,
same-
oh yes.
I think it's the
They're
same.
always with us.
They will always be there.
It
That's
just
right.
depends on whether they are able to gain power or not.
Gain power or not.
But I think it's the same ones just keep incarnating. And so
Well,
the same thing
that-
keeps repeating in history.
That's an interesting opinion.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
That's an interesting opinion, Glenn. I
Yes.
don't know that I've seen a lot of support for that among the Swamis.
Well, that's just my own theory.
Well, that's what I say. We all have our opinions, and we're welcome to them, and they may be perfectly accurate.
So
But
what is the Swami's train of thought on that?
oh, let's not go there. I mean,
Okay.
if you and I want to talk about that privately, I can tell you. But they the whole subject of reincarnation is seen very differently by the Swamis. So
Mussolini read Machiavelli's The Prince. Does anybody know if that is true?
I'm almost certain it's true, but I don't know that I ever heard an authoritative voice say so. But then that's because I'm not a historian. So again, let's not go down that path too much.
Sure.
Haima is absolutely right that these beings exist in today's world.
They'll always be there
I
with
know,
you.
always with us.
With us.
Just depends on whether they gain access to power, that they're able to work their evil in a way that is writ large, rather than just in a narrower frame of reference. Anything else from anyone?
Since those words were used in connection with people who are devoted to God in some sense, would the parallel in our shared religious history be like certain forms of fundamentalist Christianity, where they're just known for being very violent and mean towards women and just have a
Well,
negative
Let's
outlook towards life?
let's not be critical of anyone. it's not up to us to judge. Christ said himself, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." But certainly, there's evidence for what you say, Daniel. But
We're just asking if that would be an example, that type of personality would be an
let's not
example.
pick on anyone. Let's not point fingers. There are those kinds of fundamentalists in every
religion,
tradition,
every country,
everyone,
everywhere.
and so yes, they're there.
He's speaking of worshipers of a sort, right? Not explicitly demons. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Well, I'm Daniel. We're getting a little too focused on this. I'd sooner that we move on. It's not that it's wrong to talk about this. It's just that the desire to pin things down is not what we're about, at least this evening. If you wish to discuss these things with me privately, you're more than welcome. Okay, if there's no one else, then let's go ahead.
Okay, I just want to read this one more time. But the highest devotion transcends the three gunas or qualities, being a spontaneous, uninterrupted inclination of the mind toward God, the inner soul of all beings, and it wells up in the heart of a true devotee as soon as he hears the name of God or mention of God's attributes. A devotee possessed of this love would not accept the happiness of heaven if it were offered him. His one desire is to love God under all conditions, in pleasure and pain, life and death, honor and dishonor, prosperity and adversity. There are two stages of bhakti. The first is known as Vaidhi Bhakti, or love of God, qualified by scriptural injunctions. For the devotees of this stage are prescribed regular and methodical worship, hymns, prayers, the repetition of God's name, and the chanting of his glories. This lower bhakti in course of time matures into para bhakti, or supreme devotion, known also as prema, the most intense form of divine love. Divine love is an end in itself. It exists potentially in all human hearts, but in the case of bound creatures, it is misdirected to earthly objects. Once more, divine love is an end in itself. It exists potentially in all human hearts, but in the case of bound creatures, it is misdirected to earthly objects. To develop the devotee's love for God, Vaishnavism humanizes God. God is to be regarded as the devotee's parent, master, friend, child, husband, or sweetheart, each succeeding relationship representing an intensification of love. These bhavas, or attitudes toward God, are known as Santa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhur. The rishis of the Vedas, Hanuman, the cowherd boys of Vrindavan, Rama's mother Kausalya, and Radhika, Krishna's sweetheart, exhibited respectively the most perfect examples of these forms. In the ascending scale, the glories of God are gradually forgotten, and the devotee realizes more and more the intimacy of divine communion. Finally, he regards himself as the mistress of his beloved, and no artificial barrier remains to separate him from his ideal. No social or moral obligation can bind to the earth his soaring spirit. He experiences perfect union with the Godhead. Unlike the Vedantist, who strives to transcend all varieties of the subject-object relationship, a devotee of the Vaishnava path wishes to retain both his own individuality and the personality of God. To him, God is not an intangible absolute, but the Purushottama, the supreme person. While practicing the discipline of the Madhur Bhava, the male devotee often regards himself as a woman in order to develop the most intense form of love for Sri Krishna, the only Purusha or man in the universe.
Now, this is not restricted to Vaishnavism. It is very much found in the saints of the Catholic Church, the saints of Sufism.
Right.
You find this also you find it in Shaivism and Shakti, these other paths. This way of being that is beyond all definition. But it is this adoption by male devotees of the attitude of a woman toward the beloved. And it is highly recommended by Sri Ramakrishna for those who go beyond ordinary forms of devotion. And and he himself, of course, practiced this in the most intense fashion. Anything else from anyone about what was read or just said? Okay.
Okay. This assumption of the attitude of the opposite sex has a deep psychological significance. It is a matter of common experience that an idea may be cultivated to such an intense degree that every idea alien to it is driven from the mind. This peculiarity of the mind may be utilized for the subjugation of the lower desires and the development of the spiritual nature. Now, the idea which is the basis of all desires and passions in a man is the conviction of his indissoluble association with the male body. If he can inoculate himself thoroughly with the idea that he is a woman, he can get rid of the desires peculiar to his male body. Again, the idea that he is a woman may in turn be made to give way to another higher idea, namely that he is neither man nor woman, but the impersonal spirit.
This is the idea. You free yourself from the bondage of maleness, and then you transcend even the feminine aspect and see yourself as genderless. And if you are in contact with the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order, you will feel this emanation coming from them. They do not feel like a man or a woman. They feel like the spirit. They are the face of the eternal teacher. And so, for example, when Swami Sarvadevananda comes, you can come and meet with him and see if you think I'm right, that he does not seem to be a male person. He does not seem to be a female person. He has transcended both and is, in effect, genderless as he goes about in the world, though he has still has a male body. This is true of nuns as well. They also come to this state of being. Any comments or questions about any of that?
Yes, there seems to be something wrong with that. To me,
As pleases yourself, Robert. What is it you mean?
it just seems that God put man and woman in this world, and for us to deny either, or to deny that in any way, it doesn't seem to follow the trend of nature, the natural instincts of people.
Well, it's interesting the way you put that, Robert. It isn't that I'm disagreeing with your basic premise that there's something wrong with denying it, but it is that word denying. It isn't
Yes.
that it's denied, it is transcended. It's simply you rise above definition, all definition, not just the definition of gender. So it isn't there's as if there's any rejection or denial or repression. That's not the point. The point is that in your spiritual identification with the divine being within, which is by definition genderless, though it has a male and female form as gods and goddesses, but behind that is this genderless aspect. The Atman has no gender. So it's the identification with the Atman or Brahman that leads to this transcendence. So if indeed one is denying or repressing or suppressing their gender identification, that will lead, as you said, to error. Does that make sense?
Not really, because you can change the wording, but the concept, the idea of it is a necessary thing in this world. We need man and we need woman in order to create children so that this world can continue. And without that concept, the world would end. There would be no one left.
Oh, you heard loud and clear, Robert. And this is why each of us has our unique spiritual path. Yours is dedicated to this idea of each individual must participate in this regeneration of children. The spiritual path that Sri Ramakrishna represents says not so. That
Not each. Not each.
Okay. Well, let's leave it there, Robert, because we're not going to. Again, it's trying to pin this down takes a lot of time.
No, it's not trying to pin it down. We are trying to find a direction here. And this is a main point that determines, this is the fork of the road.
Well, as Yogi Berra said, let's take it.
Plus, you have to remember, what you're talking about, Robert, is you're talking about the ephemeral form in this world. And when you're experiencing yourself as a female aspect relation to God, you're in a very subtle or formless state, would be my experience.
Well, that is how it begins, yes. Finally, you transcend both, male and female identification. And as I said, if you want to know what I'm talking about, come and meet Swami Sarvadevananda. You will see that you cannot detect any masculine or feminine way of being in him. He seems to be genderless. He is, after all, a monk, not going to participate in the procreation of the race. That's part of the way of being of a monk or a nun.
Swami Sarvapriyananda is fond of saying that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Exactly.
And maybe a play on that would be we're spiritual beings having a male human experience or a female human experience.
Yes, indeed. And procreation of the race. I mean, Holy Mother said to some of her disciples, "What do you mean you're going to renounce the world and not have children? Have children, or otherwise how will this go on?" Just what Robert was saying. So it isn't that this path that is being talked about here, this very lofty aspect of Vaishnava principle and practice, is for everyone. It is not. It is not. It is for those who come to, as Robert said, a fork in the road. And so they take one of the forks of the road. And so, again, it's not that there's any disagreement with Robert about his basic premise that there needs to be this identification as man and woman in order to procreate the race. And that's why I said what I said about Holy Mother. She emphatically said this to some of her disciples. No, you're married. You're a married couple. Have children. Have 2, 3 children, and then live together as brother and sister. But don't think that it's wrong to have children. It's not wrong to have children. It's a great grace and privilege to have children. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
couple of comments. One is that this overcoming the identity or whatever with the gender in the spiritual path, the transcendence is different than the confusion that sometimes happens, I guess, in the in the world as we see it, where due to different influences, there are, I guess, aspects that people sort of, I guess, I'm blanking out on the right word, but the confusion is the best I can come to it. Whereas in the spiritual path, it's more of the overcoming of the confusion and transcending it. That's what I understand. And secondly, it's each one of us that is deciding what message resonates with us and how do we move forward, because not everybody is going to be at the same place at the same time. Again, it's God or Brahman who's eventually releasing, I guess, those that are ready. I don't know if that made any sense, but
Well, I think you were being euphemistic there in the beginning about what you meant by confusion. There are people who are apparently confused about who they are, but then it's not up to us to judge. It's not up to us to say this person is right and this person is wrong. We just don't know enough. We can make these decisions for ourselves. We can have some influence over the near and dear, but for us to judge others, particularly on a wholesale basis, and pass legislation against certain kinds of behaviors and so on, is simply at best, it's inauspicious. So maybe we can leave it at that. I mean, this definitely is a controversial topic. This Vaishnava idea of transcending gender. But as I said, it's not something that is exclusive to Vaishnavism. It is there in the Catholic tradition. It's there in the Sufi tradition. And there have been great saints that have trod that path. Great saints.
Vedanta talked about this also. He reiterated the same thing in the Bhakti Yoga book.
Yes, exactly.
Namaste,
Okay.
everybody.
Yes, Shailesh.
All this discussion is going on. I would like to share an actual incident which I witnessed. This was 1994. I was getting initiated after initiation at the Ramakrishna Order headquarters at Belur Mutt. And there were two people in front of me. And my Guru Maharaj, the 12th president of the Ramakrishna Order, Swami Bhuteshanandaji, he was having a chat. And after the initiation, and this, just to let you know that he was a person who had seen Holy Mother and had spent several years in Himalayas, and had decided that he will never come down till he realizes, or till his mind is completely merged in Sri Ramakrishna. And then he came down in, I think it was 1930 or something, and then eventually he did a lot of work, and then he became a president. So that's what his background is. So I was right there, and I saw two people. One person asked Swamiji that, Maharaj, I would like to join the order, and what is your, he said, I want your blessings. And Maharaj looked at him and he said, well, you have parents at home. Please go and take care of your parents. Family life is also very good. And that's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And then another person, he said, he walked forward, and basically to the first person, he clearly said that you become a householder. Okay. And he looked, and the another person said, Maharaj, I have, what do you suggest for me? Because he was expecting that. And he said, no, you join the Ramakrishna Order. So you can see that these people who have the perception, who can see through, and as Raja Maharaj, the first president of the order, Swami Brahmananda, he used to look into the eyes and he could see the internals of the human being. What is this person's spiritual journey is. And so on the same lines, I think Guru Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj, he looked at and he could see the spiritual journey of these people, So that's all I have to offer here, that probably we don't have the insight when we look at people, but some of these great beings, they do have. And there are people who have a particular path already set because of their evolution, or whatever you could like to call. So, I think we cannot generalize it. I've seen this right here, So that's all.
Thank you, Shailesh, for all of that. this is why we can only make decisions for ourselves, or we can have recourse to someone that we can trust entirely with our concerns and our future. And this is our guru, if you choose to have a guru. A guru is not necessary by definition, but it is certainly an aid for those people who yearn to have someone that they can truly and deeply trust as a guide. So this is why Shailesh was talking fondly and very respectfully of his Guru Maharaj, Swami Bhuteshanandaji, who was indeed an elevated soul. All of those who have become presidents of the Ramakrishna order have been highly elevated souls. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Shailesh. All right. If there's nothing more, then Haima can read on for a bit.
The impersonal spirit alone can enjoy real communion with the impersonal God. Hence, the highest realization of the Vaishnava draws close to the transcendental experience of the Vedantist. A beautiful expression of the Vaishnava worship of God through love is to be found in the Vrindavan episode of the Bhagavata. The gopis, or milkmaids of Vrindavan, regarded the 6-year-old Krishna as their beloved. They sought no personal gain or happiness from this love. They surrendered to Krishna their bodies, minds, and souls. Of all the gopis, Radhika or Radha, because of her intense love for him, was the closest to Krishna. She manifested Mahabhava and was united with her beloved. This union represents, through sensuous language, a super-sensuous experience. Sri Chaitanya, also known as Gauranga, Gora or Nimai, born in Bengal in 1485 and regarded as an incarnation of God, is a great prophet of the Vaishnava religion. Chaitanya declared the chanting of God's name to be the most efficacious spiritual discipline for the Kali Yuga. Sri Ramakrishna, as the monkey Hanuman, had already worshipped God as his master. Through his devotion to Kali, he had worshipped God as his mother. He was now to take up the other relationships prescribed by the Vaishnava scriptures. And now we're moving to Ram Lala. That's the next. Any comments, Brother Shankara?
No, just any comments or concerns or questions from anyone about this last. Okay, the Rasa Lila, or sweet play of the Lord, that took place in Vrindavan is well worth your attention. It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is available in a translation by Swami Prabhavananda, which makes it very accessible indeed. But Sri Ramakrishna, as we go through the book, we'll see that Sri Ramakrishna identified entirely with Sri Krishna in this period and was absolutely entranced with the Rasa Lila, that it continued to hold his attention after these 500 years, or not five. It's 500 years for us Um, oh, I forgot how long ago it was. In any event, it was a long time ago, longer than 500 years. Whenever Krishna lived, 5,000 years ago, something like that. So this attitude of the gopis, this absolutely hopeless, that is to say, they had no hope for anything out of their relationship with Krishna. They just loved him for love's sake alone. And so they had great fulfillment and were great souls that had been born as these gopis by their own. They prayed to be born in that form, so that they could be with Krishna in that Rasa Lila, that episode in Vrindavan. This is the way that Srimad Bhagavatam tells the story. So we'll wait until next week to start the Ramlala.
We only have couple.
Ramlala is the baby Rama, and it describes Sri Ramakrishna's relationship with Rama as this child Rama, Ramlala, and so it's a very intriguing episode in his life. Anything else from anyone before we close? Okay. Dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om Amen. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityor Ma Amrutangamaya. Abir Moiti. This short and powerful prayer. O dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Hari Om Tat Sat. O dearly beloved, make it so. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, let us know that it is so. So any final thought from anyone? Anything else? Okay. So until next week, we'll meet tomorrow evening if you care to join us for our study of the Gita, Swayam being our reader. And then this Saturday we'll talk about Patanjali's Yoga Sutras Jeff Saulich cannot serve as our reader this coming Saturday. He has a musical performance in North Carolina. So someone else will have to read, either Balakrishna or Haima, or some other person can serve as our reader. And then on this coming Sunday, we have our annual meeting of the congregation. And I hope if you can attend in person, that you do that. We will meet in the chapel. Masks will be required. And then because of the weather forecast, it looks like we will not have a meal outdoors afterwards. If that changes, we will indeed. But just to look for updates from Cindy, the bulletins and newsletter and so on, and to let us know what to expect. If you do think you're coming and you would like to reserve some food for yourself, that would be a kindness. There will be a form attached to this week's newsletter to let you do that. But that doesn't guarantee that there will be a meal, simply because we're planning to eat outside, and that may not be possible because rain is, strong rain is predicted. All right, anything else from anyone? Okay. Great, good night to you, dears.
Good night, Brother Shankara. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.